Hey, podcast friends. Do you need to elevate your spirit, feel lighter, feel happier, feel looser, clear your trauma, clear your stuck past life energy, clear your karma? Do you want to forward your spiritual progress? Do you want to deepen your spiritual path? Do you want to deepen your connection to the divine source of the creation of all that is? Then maybe you should join us in Massachusetts, April 16th to the 19th. I'll be leading a 4-day Christ Light healing retreat. The Christ Light has nothing to do inherently with religion or Christianity. It's just a very powerful light that is known as the Christ light that brings through, honestly, the most profound healing light I've yet experienced on earth. Christ, Jesus the Christ, was a human man around whom a religion was formed because the light he was bringing forth was so strong. So for 4 days, April 16th to the 19th, I'm gonna transmit Christ light right on at ya to heal all your stuff. So join us. Email me at klrubin, K as in kiss, L as in love, RUBIN @gmail.com to ask me any questions you have. 4 days of healing. You can join us online or in person. Christ Light Healing Retreat, April 16th to the 19th. klrubin @gmail.com for questions. Love and light, love and light, love and light, love and light.
Welcome to that spiritual, actual, factual answers to questions you're asking. You find them inside you, recite you, reciting the records of cash. We laughing, we drafting the passion through varied. It's time for that comedy, dramedy, all of the fanciest, catchiest acronyms. Listeners, listen, we traveling. Consciousness is always unraveling. The reading you're having is mapping you back to your natural habitat. Abracadabra, it's magicless, fascinating. To top it off, the host, all the classy is. Now, what were you asking for? All of the answers? What? All the answers.
Also, let's just say it. I'm taping, by the way. Are you taping? Were we good? I'm like in a full-on relation.
Damn, girl, you move fast. I love you for that.
I'm in a relation. And like, we traveled. We went to Albuquerque this weekend.
Did you meet family?
Yes.
What?
I know. It's like, at first I was like, I don't know, and we shouldn't, and I don't want to put you through that, and you don't have to meet my dad, and we'll just go there and we won't see him. And then we got down there and I was like, I want to see him. And then he was like, I'm down with whatever. And I was all nervous that it was going to be weird. It was fantastic. Like, my dad was in rare form, super open-hearted and humble and kind and telling stories. He's a scientist. The man friend is a scientist. They could talk about labs. I don't know.
That's what science people talk about, right? Labs.
Well, they did talk about labs specifically, but like my dad is like way down the road of like way advanced versions of whatever man friend is doing. We're going to call him man friend because I don't want to out him yet.
I got you.
Yeah. So anyway, it went really well. He like super duper hit it off with my stepsister who happened to be in town, which was a weird miracle. And then my stepmother really liked him because he's been to Nepal and she's like, I want to go to Nepal. And my stepsister's all like hiking and skiing and all the physical stuff. And man friend is all hiking and skiing and all the physical stuff. It was great.
Awesome.
And we did like the teeniest little visit. She was like, hi, how are you? Good to meet you. Chit chat, bye. So perfect. You know, none of this like, let's stay for a lot of days and be obligated to do social stuff together. Nah.
That is awesome.
Anyway, so I think all of that is a long-winded way of saying that's also why it feels like 6 years since I've talked to you guys, because I've had like deep, profound things happen every day since we last talked. Because you know how it is like when you're new with someone and like you got to meet each other and like know the things. And for me anyway, starting a new thing with someone is intense because there's so much of like, I'm like this when I go over here and you're like that and we feel these ways. And how is it for you to go to a restaurant? And when you have a nap, do you need, I mean, you know what I'm saying? There's like, you're getting to know so many parts of yourself in relationship to them and then so many parts of them. And then you have to tell them the truth about how after you shower, you like to, you know what I'm saying?
I do. Very much so. Yeah.
Oh, God.
It's right. And then you, especially once it gets to the more like PKU and intimate stuff of just like how I hang out in my house in the morning or whatever, or like what energy I like to have after sex, or like what, just the weird
everything.
quirk stuff. Yeah.
Everything. Because there's all that stuff, right? Which is like practical. Like if like we've been out hiking a bunch and I'm always like, and I'm wiped after. Like if I went hiking with you, Cass, if we went on a hike and it was an 1.5-hour hike, that's my full day. Like after that, I am laying down and watching television. Maybe I'll eat, maybe I'll shower.
Right.
This dude is like young and athletic and like all kinds of functional. So I'm like, is it okay to just lay down after? And I'm just like, well, you're going to watch me be an old lady because I'm going to lay down after. That's what I'm doing. So then, but there's that anxiety of like, is he going to be like, well, now we run a 10K. And then I have to be like, good luck. I'll be here napping.
Yeah,
but
I feel you.
Yeah.
Well, the fact that here's something I'm learning lately around being your actual self instead of the self that is trying to convince someone to like you or assure that they like you want to ease them into the weird things that are you. No, fuck that. That's not serving them or you. That does not serve the relationship. Like, obviously you don't want to just, go full balls into some crazy town. Like, this is the most extreme version of me, but like if you are someone who has to nap after a hike, don't make him think that you're not.
No. I don't really have the option to fake it at this point. Like I'm too, I don't know what the word is, like eccentric and don't give a fuck.
Old.
Thank
That's
you.
The
That's
word
the word
you're looking for.
That's it. And also, like, I have my own rhythms and I, like, know who I am and I know what works and what doesn't. And, like, I did a lot of work to get to that place. So I'm not giving any of that shit up for some hot cock.
As tempting as that may be. Like, that's still, I think we've talked about this before, but that idea of, like, you have to bring your genuine self, your authentic self to the table. But you also, so there's it's that balance between I ain't changing for nobody, which is kind of right. And I know you're not saying that, but like, how do we bring our authentic self to the table while still remaining open to, we won't call it change, we'll call it growth within that relationship. Like, there are certain things that I could change or at least grow through.
I think, so what's happening for me is, that's a great point. And what's happening for me is like being around him, there's a lot of stuff I have to open into. It's not like change who I am, but open into them. Like share this thing, say these words, try his stuff, invite him into my stuff. And we're both like, I have to give us both credit. We're both doing all of it quite well. He met my fucking dad.
That's great. Awesome.
And I have been cross-country skiing, downhill skiing, hiking a lot. Like shit that I would be like, maybe I'll try that. And we are doing all of it.
How are those glutes doing? Your glutes feeling all right? That's a lot of glute work you're doing there.
I'm starting to get some kind of ass.
Good. Little form, little shape.
Little direction. My point being, for me, I don't know if this is the case for him, but for me, it's sort of like heavy lifting. Like it's like going to the gym just to be open to be with someone new. Like there's a lot in it. You're like, okay, sure, I'll buy ski pants because you need ski. Okay, I gotta go buy fucking ski pants. You know what I'm saying?
I do.
And I say all this like, oh, it's such a terrible, horrifying experience dating a new person. And it's not. It's work. It feels like work for my nervous system, but he's so wonderful and worth it. And we're having a great time. So I feel like I should say that. It's like true. He's great. It's just like, I like when we're talking on camera, on air, on whatever we are, I like to like really tell the naked truth for people because I really think that's what we're up to here. It's like, I want to talk about how even when it's like romantic-y and fun and you're all about it and it feels like a great match and all the bleh, it's like also this is work. This is not, you know what I mean? Dating is not like lay down in a fucking inner tube on the river and float till you're comfortable and take a nap. It's like, it's work. Particularly when you're me and you have relational trauma.
Right.
That's another thing we should talk about is that
you got to constantly come to it and look at it in the eyes. And
ugh. Yeah, and he's such a light being that he brings up, like he sort of emanates all this light at me, and I'll find myself like every single week in my healing work, I'm like with my person at my facilitator, I'm like, okay, I have this new thing that's coming up about relationships, and then we like zap it and clear it, and I'm amazed by how well it works. But like every week some relational dynamic thing is up, and it's not about he's done nothing wrong or weird or nothing, just me relating intimately brings up all this stuff from the past.
Is he an active like spiritual practitioner, or is he just one of those passively awesomely spiritual people?
Both, kinda. He like is just sort of like a lot of light and a lot of joy, and he's just, I don't know, he's just kind of good. But then also he has a path. He's on a path, and he does the things, and he meditates with the stuff, and he reads the books, and he loves all the things. And I've like opened his records, and we have our mutual friends. This is good to talk about. Who introduced us are like my most spiritual friends in town, and they're friends with him, and I'm friends with them. And so we all are like this little foursome now of like weird Akashic record, juju, portal creation, light channeling weirdos. And he was like all nervous when we first were hanging out. He's like, I kind of watched this thing, and it's this guy, Matthias de something. I can't remember his name. Anyway, he's like, it's this show on Gaia about aliens and the history of the world. And I was like, let's watch it now. And we're both just like, it's so refreshing to meet someone who, and by the way, he has like a job in like the sciences. He's like sciencey and mental and cerebral and stuff, but also like woo-woo and aliens and love and light.
That's awesome.
So he's a wizard. He's a wizard from heaven is what he is.
The question I wanted to ask you actually had to do back with when you're saying, you show up in this podcast and you want to be all open and truthful and genuine and everything. How, like, did you warn him he's probably going to come up on the podcast and things like that? Like how that whole sharing of that reality in this public forum, how does that feel to you, and what's your relationship to that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. First things first, I told him about the podcast like right away. He listened to, God, which one did he listen to? I think he listened to Sophia's episode, and he like got a sense of it and got a sense of what we are, and was like, it's great. You guys are great. And so, I don't hide. So like, you're hearing me on that episode. So he knows like the gist of things. And then because he has a great sense of humor, I was like, you got to listen to butt stuff. And he was like, oh, butt stuff is on my list. I'm going to get to butt stuff, eventually. So there's that. I know that he's listened, and I know that he knows what it is. Also, we've hung out a lot now, and he like knows what I'm all about. And I also, I know that he knows I'm inappropriate, and I won't be saying anything today that I think he wouldn't want me to say, because I know him a little bit now too. And I'm like, yeah, he wouldn't probably want me to say blah, blah, blah just yet on the air. So I'm not going to, go there. But like the things we've said so far feel like super fine to share about, because I'm really talking about me. I'm talking about my weird neuroses relationally and what comes up for me around all this stuff,
Totally.
That's a good question, because I wouldn't want to say anything that would be like, what's that phrase? Telling tales out of school, telling stories out of school.
That sounds like a phrase, telling stories out of school. Yeah, because also you don't want, sometimes you might reveal, there's the whole, and finish a sentence, Cassidy. The idea of like, we are careful about like how much we say like, I really like you, or I love you, or saying those words or whatever, like revealing the level of our feeling. We tend to ration that out a little bit till it's the appropriate time, even if we're feeling stronger or whatever. But in a context like this, you might be like, it's so awesome, I love him, or whatever. You haven't said that. Let me be clear. That's up to you guys to negotiate. But the idea of like releasing too much of the energy ahead of itself because of the way we talk about things, that's just something that occurs to me.
And I just won't do that.
Good.
I just have boundaries. That's called boundaries.
How do those work?
What? I don't know what you're saying now. Yeah, because you can't like have a relationship with someone who isn't in the room.
Exactly.
You sure can think you can.
Well,
but you can't.
that's kind of what a lot of us are doing now because of, taking it slow in reality of shared bubbles.
I'm going on and on.
Oh, you froze, darn it. Hold on. You'll come back in a second.
Uh-oh. I think I froze. But now I'm recording again and we're reunited, and it feels so good.
You ready? Are you ready for Tami?
Oh, wait, let's get back in the zone.
Oh my God. Tami, motherfucking KSUT, public radio, Graham.
Maybe I should change that.
I think that's their call sign, isn't it? Motherfucking KSUT, public radio.
And yeah, K motherfucking public radio.
What's up, Tami Graham?
Hey!
Welcome aboard. Let me introduce you briefly to the team here. First of all, I'll introduce all of you to each other. Cassidy Brown, my amazing friend forever. We've done comedy, theater together, all kinds of comedy things, improv, theater, and friendship, and love and light. He lives in the Bay Area. And Tami Graham runs and has a show on KSUT, which is the public radio station here in this area, but she'll say more about that because she's more articulate about it. Also spiritualist, wacky, amazing creator of events. Thousands of people come. She and I, friends right away, ninja wizard woman. Also, Tami lives on, I must say, the most freaking beautiful property I've ever seen. And she's got a straw bale down here and a studio over there, and then there's 3 houses, but it's all huge land with vistas forever. And she has like a wraparound view of all the mountains here. It's just stunning. And last thing I'll say, her roommate's dog is Squeezle the dog's new boyfriend. BFFs. And we have Desmond, of course, Desmond McNeese, who makes all of this happen. Sound guy, producer guy, wizard of all things good. And here we are. How the hell are you?
I'm good. Just got off we had an hour-long managers meeting with our staff at KSUT, and yeah, things are good. I worked on my own records a little bit this morning. Oh, so that was nice. I'm really enjoying all of that.
Tami came, just for context for everybody listening, Tami came to my recent class called Learn to Read the Akashic Records. So she's talking about, they had a little homework assignment to get in their own records every day for 30 days. Tell us about it. How did it go?
It's just such a sweet energy, I mean, I know I'm telling you things you already all know probably, but for me, it's just such a sweet energy. I could just sit there and be like, I don't have any questions. Can we just hang out? Kind of vibe. And, it's just nice. And I can feel the healing energy and the healing vibe around it. Oh, this is just like being in like a really deep meditation with cherry on top or something. So it's nice.
That's so good. I'm so glad to hear. I feel the same way. I feel the same way. Totally. Can you, Tami, tell us a little bit about, you have such a fun, from my perspective, such a fun, eclectic relationship to spirituality, and you have a lot of different ways in, and I'd love to hear about, what does spirituality mean to you? What do you do? What are your practices? How did you get involved with it? Why spirituality? Anything about, what do you got?
There's a lot of questions there. I think like a lot of us, maybe as a child, I realized there was something kind of cool and special going on here, but what was it? And was pretty sure not everybody kind of got it. But I just looked around and noticed things and was a keen observer and realized that deep knowing that there was a lot more going on than what I was seeing in my day-to-day life, in my family or whatever. And so I think I've had a lifelong quest. I remember being 10 or 11 years old and sneaking off to the library to look up books on the paranormal and what does that mean and paranormal psychology, and just this really early young real thirst and hunger for understanding more about what makes us individually tick, what makes our cultures tick. I guess part of that is what led me to, I did my master's in transpersonal psych out at JFK. I looked at CIIS at the time and just had a really strong bodily reaction after my interview. I threw up. I was like, okay, that's not the route to go. So I went into school at JFK, which was decent, but it was more about, my own personal journey. But
Tami, can I interrupt you real quick? I have a question about JFK and transpersonal psychology specifically.
Yeah.
Whenabouts were you there?
I was in the Bay Area from 97 to 01.
Just doing some calculation on things.
Were you there?
No, I was not, but my mom actually taught at JFK for a while and is in the field of psychosynthesis, which is a transpersonal psychology. And I'm just wondering if you know her, because I was like, you would have crossed paths probably. My mom is Molly Young Brown.
Oh, yeah. That's your mom? Oh, how awesome.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, I love her work. Yeah. And her work with, help me.
Joanna Macy and the work that reconnects.
Yes. Let's see. Was I there? I don't think she was there when I was, or I think I would have certainly.
I think she was there before you when she was teaching there. I think that was before the time you just said. So.
Yeah. What a cool mom. How awesome.
I agree.
I did when I lived in the East Bay, and while I was going to graduate school, I was working at Gaia Bookstore. I don't know if you remember Gaia, that in North Berkeley, and I ended up doing all the author events. So I probably met your mom. I certainly met Joanna Macy several times through coordinating all the author events. And for those who don't know, but the Gaia Bookstore at the time, that they went out of business, but at the time they were like the leading kind of like that, everything that I got paid shit, but it was this amazing experience of like, Stan Groff and Alice Walker and like, just like all these people that I was studying and learning about in graduate school, right in the realm, where I was bringing to speak to bigger outside venues, like say Martin Luther King Jr. Middle School auditorium or whatever, because we needed bell hooks, like it was such an amazing experience to be presenting. And I think that kind of encapsulates for me, Katie, back to your question, like my personal and professional, life. They kind of come together through a sense of spirituality and like embodied in the world, doing work. How does that play out? My spiritual beliefs and my spiritual connection. And I like to call it sacred play. It's like things manifest, right? Like, oh, cool. That was a cosmic wink, like, yeah, okay. That manifested out of seemingly nowhere, that to help further, like, little case in point, if I may, yesterday, I was speaking with an old friend I was going to interview her tomorrow on KSUT about affordable housing. She's an affordable housing consultant, and it's such an issue throughout the Rocky Mountain West and everywhere. She's like, oh, my husband works for CHAFA, Colorado Housing and Finance Association. And I was telling her about this project, this collaboration of radio stations in Colorado, this grant we're working on to report on affordable housing from all our different perspectives and all our different communities like Carbondale and Telluride and Aspen and all over Durango. I said, we just applied for this grant for $20,000 from the Solutions Journalism Network to report on great things that are happening regarding solutions to affordable housing, which is really complex and hard to address. And she said, oh, my husband now works for CHAFA. You guys could easily get $5,000 from them to support your project if you need it. I said, oh, cool. Turns out yesterday we found out that we asked for $20,000 for our project from Solutions Journalism Network. We only got 15, so we needed another 5. And
oh my God.
Phone, my friend Jen, who I hadn't talked to in a couple of years, she's like, you've been on my mind. I've been meaning to call you. And I said, oh, about what? She goes, all kinds of things. But here's one thing. And so here it is, here's the 5,000 we didn't even know we needed when I was talking to her yesterday, that her husband's going to give us to support this reporting project. So stuff like that. I just love it. Right. I mean, it's so much fun.
Oh my God. All the time. So many little synchronistic miracle moments I love it. That's so cool. And I love that you're talking about, Tami, like the embodiment of the spirit in the work that we're doing in 3D reality. Because I really think like we talk a lot about that on the podcast, about how it can't be like spirituality can't just be this abstract thing that exists that we like do because we do it. It has to be somehow applicable or practical here and now. Otherwise, like, I mean, you could make arguments. Like I certainly know some people who do like off-planet work and off-body work that's really just about forwarding consciousness. And it's really not that. It's not like getting applied in the daily life of that individual, but it's getting applied collectively or whatever. But still, that has a practical application for the collective. So anyway, I love that. Now I have a question for you off of that. I'm wondering, it sounds to me like you were always just kind of curious about spiritual stuff and the occult, and you just were always kind of open to it and interested in it. And then you go to grad school or college. It was a grad program? Yeah.
Master's program. Yeah.
And was your idea, did you at that time think you would be like working in that field, or were you just like, I don't know, I just want to know all this stuff?
I was pretty sure I didn't, like a lot of people in psychology and master's programs, end up they're doing it because they want to be therapists or counselors. And I knew for me, it wasn't about one-on-one work necessarily that was motivating me, because I've got Aquarius rising. So I'm this bigger picture person and thinker. And I love working with groups, I'm a Leo and all this stuff. So I wasn't sure, but I knew it was going to be about mostly about my personal interest, and the rest would the blanks would get filled in. So it turns out one of the courses I took when I my first semester was initially it was organizational leadership, was the grad certificate I was going to get along with my master's in transpersonal psych, because I wanted to work with organizations, maybe doing, consulting, facilitation work, training, etc. I took a conflict resolution class. I was like, oh my God, this is fascinating. And so I ended up having kind of a double focus within the master's program of organizational leadership and development with conflict resolution. So I ended up coming back when I moved back to Durango in the Southwest in 2001, having for 10 years of doing a lot of mediation work, a lot of organizational nonprofit consulting work. So that thing around conflict resolution really emerged when I was in the program as and that to me totally had an interest personally and professionally. I was fascinated by conflict resolution work or conflict transformation work from a kind of a psycho-spiritual perspective. And so I ended up writing my master's thesis on the reconciliation of the tension of the opposites. And what does that applied look like? How do we resolve those tensions in ourselves, with others, in the world? I mean, it's just like the fractal that keeps on going. You can kind of apply. And so that's, been an endless kind of fascination for me, is the dynamics of conflict and how we resolve it on all those levels that really emerged out of that master's program work, again, being applicable on lots of different levels in my life and how I see the world, I think.
I have 60 things to say. One of them is, I want to hear how you got so you were doing conflict resolution work with different organizations, I think in the Bay Area.
I started in the Bay Area. I worked for the East Bay Mediation Center, and I did a bunch of work in Bay. And then I moved back to Durango, and yeah.
And then how did you move what's the trajectory from there to working at the radio station?
Well, before I left Durango, I had managed the Fort Lewis College community radio station from 90 to 97. So it was already a thread in my life. I got really involved in just the community and public radio bug just bit me in my undergraduate studies. And I was like, oh my God, I love this, a medium for communication. It was totally fit with my Aquarius rising and Leo stuff, a way to communicate and have this conversation across, that anybody can have access to. It's like what we're doing here, an extension of that. And so I already had been really involved in radio, public radio, cycled out, didn't let it go. 20 years later, this opportunity came back for me to run KSUT, because I had been hired as an independent contractor to coordinate a capital campaign for KSUT. It just turned out that the board asked me, would you consider being the executive director? And I was like, well, I don't know. I sure I live an hour away from where KSUT is in Ignacio, the home of the Southern Ute tribe. And I loved working for myself, but it's also stressful too at times, right? Just financially, it's up and down. So I said, okay, I'm going to do it. Mostly because I felt a real sense of drive and mission to get this capital campaign completed and raise the money to build a beautiful new facility, which we've been in for the last 6 months in Ignacio. And so it's been a thread, it kind of surfaces and it just kept coming back. I don't know, the spiral maybe.
So you did that in Durango, and then you went away to grad school, and then you were working in conflict resolution, and then you had your own company for events, right?
I did. So Tami Graham Presents. It was a bit of a playoff, of course. Bill Graham Presents, and the joke is I was like a long lost bastard child of Bill's or something. But which is interesting because my dad was born in the Bay Area and was adopted anyway. But it wasn't Bill Graham. So yeah, I ended up producing concerts under my own production name long before I had Tami Graham Presents for many, many years. And so we brought Michael Franti and Spearhead here 4 times, his big outdoor shows and tons of concerts and events over the years. And again, it's just something that really feeds me, that sense of having a connection. We all know what it's like. You're at this amazing performance and there's this bond between the audience, right? That's palpable because you're all having this experience together. And there's something about that just really feeds me. And so being involved as someone to present and create a platform for those things all happening together, it's kind of like with radio, you're having this common shared experience that might be a little different, but you're all there's a certain commonality. And so event production is something that I just have always loved. And as you know, Katie, now KSUT inherited two years ago 2 well-established music festivals in Pagosa Springs, Colorado. And so now I get to have my yayas even more producing 3-day with camping music festivals. So I feel so lucky and grateful on so many levels for.
Very cool. And so over that time in this diverse career of yours that's been so dynamic and alive and interesting and human, it's very like for the people, talk to the people, about the people, getting the people together. I'm imagining that you've had like a journey with your relationship with spirit and like what that means, what it looks like, how you tap in. I know that's a very big question. I'm asking you to sort of narrate your entire life history with spirit, but like in a sort of gist way, can you, like, what has been the trajectory for you? It started like with this and then it turned into this. And now it's sort of like can you speak to that at all?
Yeah. I mean, it's fascinating. I mean, as a kid, I had, and, I was raised, Christian. And as a kid, I remember like feeling such a strong, palpable connection with, JC.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, but it was sort of explained. But then, when I was a teenager and I'm like, I think I might be gay. And, this feels like it's incongruous. And, blah, blah, blah. I had to have this whole reckoning for myself of like, I got to be true to me, man.
Yeah.
And if that pisses you off, whoever, then so be it. But I need to be true to who I truly am. And so I went through this whole process. And so I sort of spun out away from religion, and I'm not back. I haven't circled back, but more in a kind of maybe more mystical, if there's any connection there, it's more around mysticism and the different traditions. But so I think there's this persistent sense of connection that I've always had and felt, but finding like, even with these Akashic records, Katie, like I've sort of haven't had like the super strong connection to my spiritual life. It's almost like, okay, I'm doing my career thing, is how my, certain kind of mind thinks about it. And, I'll circle back a little later in life and I'll, write my memoir and I'll tap back into all this intense connection with spirit. And that's just so with Akashic records and starting to tap in, I just feel like, this really can be a daily part of my life and be really powerful and inform my life and break up these sort of silos that I think I had developed in myself about spirituality. Like, here's a place for it. Even though everything I've just said, like how it all infuses itself, there's still this, like, I don't know if it's like an egoic thing or what it is that tries to silo, say career versus.
Right. So you're talking about like compartmentalization of parts of life. You go like spirits over here and then a career over here and then relationships are over here. And you're saying that lately you're sort of thinking, I see how this could be integrated into all of it and it could sort of be one thing.
Yeah. In so many words, for sure. And so it's exciting, like having this tool, like with the records that feel so accessible. And like I was talking about when we first started, just that energy dropping in and boom, it's like right there. It's amazing.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it's like this river. I remember, I've done a bunch of the 10-day, meditation retreats, like the hardcore ones, like the Goenka style, where you're like 10 hours a day, you're up at 4 a.m. meditating. It's not like, there's this conversation. It always stuck with me, this discussion of like, there's this river of consciousness that always exists, or whatever you want to call it. And you drop in, right? And you pop out, and you drop in, but it's always there.
Yes.
Like, I feel like with the Akashic records, it's the same thing, and it feels so accessible. And so I really appreciate, and I know, like Katie, you use the records, constantly throughout your day, it seems, or access quite often. And so I love this notion of integration of like the use and working with like the records as just a continual informant of my choices and life across, work, personal, all of it, spiritual.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I'm always fascinated just because, I'm always looking at life through my little lens because I'm just one lady, right? Like all of us, that when people, let me see how to frame this. It's sort of like, I have needed so desperately to find, okay, I'm going to go back to something you said earlier to try to articulate this. When you're talking about the tension of opposites, I love that you're like writing your grad thesis about that and studying that, because there's a book that changed my life. I'm looking at it right now. And I got it when I went to treatment for my eating disorder 25 years ago. It's called Witness to the Fire, Creativity and the Veil of Addiction by Linda Shears Leonard. And she is all about the tension of opposites. The Jungians in general, right, tend to be very much about, they say that holding, like life, human life is the experience of learning to functionally hold the tension of opposites and not need to dissolve away from any of it or avoid it or whatever. And that addiction is this attempt, whether it's addiction to fantasy, romance, or sex or money or power or heroin, whatever, prostitutes, whatever it is, that addiction is this desperate attempt to find a way out of that tension, right? Now, I have something to say about this that I don't, okay, I'll put it like this. This is out there, okay? Surprise, surprise. But when I think for me, I so badly needed to know what peace was in my body. I had no peace, no access to peace, no peace internally. A lot of chaos, a lot of trauma, a lot of inner conflicts, so many tensions of so many opposites that two things were the result of that. One, I made some really excellent theater and I made some great stand-up shows and I've done some acting jobs that were interesting because those tensions in me were so tense that I had to express them somewhere. I had this strong need to like put it out of my body because it was so tense in there. And then over years and years of like doing that shit professionally, I discovered expressing it doesn't create peace internally. It just sort of like temporarily gasses it off a little, but it doesn't dissolve the tension of opposites driving me crazy inside myself. It doesn't. It's just a job and the job ends. And then you're back to fucking, you got all this tension and the only solution to the tension is to release it through performing again. Something sits wrong with me about that. I wanted to know, how do you actually like be done with that tension without being dead? Like, because death is one way. You could just not live and then there, you know. So anyway, a large part of my spiritual pursuits have been like this attempt to, I had this awareness that there must be a way to bring the light of consciousness or God or the divine into every single place in our being and our body and our heart and our soul that has an unresolved tension and dissolve that. And I did that. Like I got busy doing that hard. So much so that, you know, let me see how to put this in words. It's like, there are tensions of opposites everywhere in life, like that I'm not going to get away from. You can't like murder them in reality outside of yourself, but I have resolved a lot of them internally. And the answer, if because I heard you say, you were just saying words, but like, how do we resolve the tension of opposites is what whoever it was that you were studying with was asking. And I'm like, I know how. And the answer is, take the light of spirit to everywhere there's a tension and it will dissolve it into light. And then there comes a moment where there are no opposing forces internally. Like there's no more fight inside of me. There are opposing forces, you know, I have to like sleep and eat and then get up and make money, and men are different than women and up is different than down. In the relative world, tensions are here and they're not going anywhere. You're hungry and then you're full, and you're tired and then you're awake. But internally, I really just knew there was a way to dissolve those tensions, and I did it. But I'm now, good for me, high five, pat me on the back. I'm not always sure these days why it matters. In other words, I don't get any egoic pleasure out of like, look what I did. It's sort of like I needed badly inside myself to do it, so I did it. And now I'm like, what was that for? What was that for? And the answer I have so far is like, I feel a lot of peace and I feel very connected to the divine. And actually, as I say that out loud, I know what it's for. It's because to bring through the kind of light that my whole soul purpose on earth is to do. I got this the other day that my soul purpose is like, you know, we're always refining this sense of what our purpose is to heal all my stuff and then bring light. So it's for me and for them. It's the togetherness of heal stuff, bring more light. And for that soul purpose, when when the human elements that battle one another within are dissolved, both sides of those tensions are dissolved into light, it's easier to bring light through. It's just, I think now that I say that out loud, I also realize it's a very different way to live than how most people live. And I frequently experience myself butting up against, sort of the wrong way to say it, but I experience myself aware of, I'm in a room with people and we're all talking about the weather or whatever. And I'm just like, I can feel the difference between myself and humanity in this way in that way that I described. Not that that's bad, but I'm just acutely aware of it on the regular. Yeah. And so that's part of, they talk about like on the mystic's path, right? Anyone becoming closer and closer to this, whatever you're going to call it, the light, God, whatever, you're going to get weirder and weirder. And you're going to be less and less relatable. Like it's, because it's not what normal people are doing. And by normal, I just mean bigger numbers, most people, So anyway, whew.
Oh, wow.
Katie, I have a thought on that.
Yeah.
The question part where you're saying what's the point in that that occasionally that rears its head of like feeling like a struggle around that. Do you think that is sort of a remnant of the addiction of the rush of the struggle? You know what I mean? Where your mind is asking for that sort of, it's sort of like your 7 wing of your 8, like where it's like, remember when I was internally conflicted and there was a lot going on? And now that you've taken care of a lot of that, you kind of miss it but not really, but kind of do. And that's where that question comes from.
Well, great question. I think, yes, there's definitely the addiction to, there's got to be a problem. And if there's no problem, I am confused, like really thrown and confused. Yes.
Yeah, I feel weird sometimes when I feel calm, and I feel guilty for feeling calm. I feel, my contentment feels wrong. Like, so I'm just, that's what I'm kind of hearing a little of that. And I'm wondering if that's...
okay, now to refine it, because for me, it's not exactly that. I feel guilty or wrong. I don't have that one so much. This is the one I have. And this comes back to having Pisces moon, by the way, is that Pisces is always worried about what people think of it. Pisces is like, I'm so different and small and I don't make sense in this world. And what are they thinking? Are they looking at me? There's a part of me that's like, when I talked about being in a group of people and being aware of like, oh, everything in me is dissolved and not in the people around me. That's like a gift. It makes me a wizard and a teacher and all the things. But it's also like really different. So the neurotic part of me that's like, I'm so different. Nobody gets me. I'm alone. That part gets activated. And I go like, should I maybe have stayed a little more injured so I could relate to people better? And then I go, of course not. I'm here to do this leadership work. So that's just never been an option for me. But that is my stuff that comes up around it. My stuff is, well, now I'm even more of an outsider. Now I'm even weirder to the people than I used to be. And like, it's fun to think about this because I've been looking back at my theater career a lot and realizing how much of doing theater was this really strong need in me to find a place in the culture that I could fit in and where it was okay to be me, and not only okay, but where people would put me on a pedestal and laud me. Oh, the brilliant Katie Rubin. Because I felt so outside of the culture and the world that I knew if I could show them my talent and show them how, look at me express in such a creative, unique way, they would be like, you're special. And I thought the specialness would solve the problem of, I don't belong here. But ultimately what I discovered is that the specialness isolated me more. Now I'm a special, special bird in a pretty, pretty cage. And and now I've bought into that. I'm like, I am quite special. Look at my talents shining upon you. And then I'm like, go home at night after the show and feel more dead and more sad than I've ever felt. Why? Oh, because I'm not actually connecting with people or offering them something or finding a way to serve that's authentic. I am prancing around and being special. And that creates separation. And in Sufi school, the one thing our master from Jerusalem used to say over and over again is he would say, don't create separation. Never create separation and you will be free. And that has been the main teaching of my life. Like when I'm sitting in a group of people and I'm judging them, because what I was talking about before is when I'm worried they're judging me. But when I'm judging other people, what I do is while I'm judging, here we are, the three of us. Let's say I was judging one of you. I feel into the place in me that's judging you. And then I actively create a space where there is, because the judgment has a tension to it. So then what I do is let go of the judgment, and it creates a space of openness that frees the separation that the judgment was creating. Judgment creates separation. So I actively internally just let that go, and then there's no judgment, and then we're connected again. And I believe a big part of my purpose too, with the Libra North Node, thank you for being astrologically minded, Tami, is Libra is the energy of community and connection and feelings. Community, connection, togetherness, feelings. So with my whole, and North Node means Cass, or anyone who doesn't know, it's where your life is headed, the big picture of the whole purpose of your life. So mine is in Libra, which means my whole purpose is to get better at this whole connection thing, feeling close, loving people, being together in community, because I've been such a rugged individualist forever. Anyway, and I find that when I let that happen, the non-separation, AKA when I drop judgment and feel close to you guys, then, and I be vulnerable with you and I be real and I tell the truth, then the spirit is here between us. Mm-hmm. God is here when we are being real with one another. That's why Brene Brown is so popular, because Brene Brown popularized the concept of vulnerability is good, which is every therapist in the world has been saying for 500 years. And all therapists are like, great, America finally gets it because this lady said it. All right. Anyway, but I think the reason she struck such a chord with people with that TED Talk and all of her stuff, and she's brilliant and a wonderful lady and all that, is because culturally we're ready now for more spirit to be intertwined in our culture in 3D reality. The spirit is going, okay, there's no living without this connection thing, and we are interconnected, and you're going to get how fulfilling that is. You're going to get it, people, or you're going to die uncomfortable and dissatisfied.
So many thoughts. Oh my God. Thank you for sharing all that. I just had so many interesting things that come through, but I think the phrase kept coming several times, being, let's see, what is it? In the world, but not of it or something, but just,
yes,
it kept just popping up. And it's true. We live in a dualistic world, right? There's day and there's night. I mean, in nature, everywhere. And so that's the rub, right? And it's endlessly fascinating. Of course, in our lives, there's that how do we be in the world, but not dragged down by it or seduced into the egoic trappings of it? I mean, it's endless. And I think, and maybe you and I have talked about this, Katie, but I think in studying, in my master's program, all the different theories of psychospiritual development, the one that made the most sense to me and clicked was the one that talks about spiral, kind of we evolve, kind of in a spiral, because you keep coming back to that same, you're damn it, I thought I worked through that. There it is again. You're looking at it in a new set of circumstances, but it's still being reflected back, and you've evolved your understanding and your relationship to that issue. But it's time to refine it a little bit more and a little bit more. And I think that's, we're here in this world. And I think that's part of where I get so much of my juice. I think probably many times or at times in past lives, I've been the ascetic or the monk that's just gets to sit back and have that, not be of the world. So for me, I love being of the world. And I love the work I'm doing and the ways I engage with the world, because to me, that's where the juice is, right? Even because it's an amazing fucking time we're living in. My God, we're all kind of up leveling. And yet, Katie, you and I were talking about this the other day with our other friends about when I was saying I'm living in the Bay Area, for me, it felt like it was cooking on the fault line, because you got one plate going down, one plate coming up. Is that what we're going through? And there's all this energy, this rub, around intensity. And then you get an earthquake but there's emergent culture that happens, say, for example, in the Bay Area. And so what's the kind of as above, so below, or in this case, as below, so, the culture that gets formed through that tension and the individual, consciousness and people studying new ways of being and exploring the world that happens. And I'm just using the Bay Area as an example. There's lots of places like that, like here in the Southwest, but just that tension, literally, of the fault lines, that could be all of us personally, right? What's the juice? And you talked about, what the juiciness that comes from that, for you being in theater or whatnot, but it's that tension's still there. It's not like gone. It's more refined maybe, but it just shows up in different ways to engage with it. Like, oh, another opportunity to deal with this, like, so I just find it yeah.
That's interesting. I'm going to take a stab at this. Maybe you've told me this before. Do you have Gemini moon?
I have a Cancer moon.
Huh. Do you have Gemini anywhere?
Gemini North Node.
Okay. See, I can feel every time I talk to you, I feel a lot of Gemini every time. I'm always like, where is the Gemini in this lady's chart? It is strong. But the point being, when I hear you say that way, that to me sounds like a kind of a Gemini filter for, whatever your experience of reality. Whereas I'm really endlessly kind of really curious about the way the moon position plays out in one's perception of reality. That like how the moon, I have Pisces moon, right? And then my sun is in the last day of Aquarius. So I'm almost a double Pisces. So like a lot of movement in the Pisces direction. And I find, and I want to hear your thoughts on this, I find that the moon position, the planet in the moon position almost has more influence over how I experience the world moment to moment, way more than the sun or the rising for me at this point. And, what we know about the moon position is that it's how we process our emotions internally, what our inner emotional reality is. And so if how I process my emotions internally and how my inner reality is Piscean, watery, otherworldly, spiritual, not of this dimension for sure, psychic, all of that shit, then it makes sense to me that a Pisces moon is going to be like, well, I need to resolve these tensions because I need to be of the other realms. I need to be there all the time. I need to be a walking embodiment of spirit. Whereas if I hear Gemini talking about it, it talks about it like, no, we're going to be in the world and doing the world shit and committed and invested in the world. And like, with my Pisces moon, I need you around me because I will just dissolve into the fucking wind if I don't have people around me that are like into the tension. Because I'm so far out of the tension now that I'm like, actually, like, I get concerned about myself sometimes. I'm like, I would just lay outside and just dissolve. That'd be fine. I don't care. But when you come around me and our auras interact, I'm like, oh, right, the world and things that people do and we care about them. Sure. And then I'm like, sure, that's fun. Yeah. And thank God for Tami doing the world. But I do hear you talk, and this is what I love. I love that in Sufism, they call it the unity in the multiplicity. You and I are talking about the same thing. We're both like into spirit and how does it show up in right work and alignment but it's so different for us both because we are different people. But there's unity in the multiplicity. That's the paradox of everything that I think if humanity could wake up to the reality of unity in the multiplicity, we would have no fucking war anymore because you'd understand, the people who wear different hats on their heads, they're not a threat to us because they want our oil. They're not a threat.
Right. It was so
give them how about you give them some oil? Just give it to them.
It reminds me, I went into my chiropractor last Wednesday in Ignacio, and the whole thing had just come out, like, okay, Texas and Mississippi are gonna lift their, blah, blah, blah. This is just a case in point. So I was like, Jesus Christ, and of course I work for an NPR affiliate, so I hear all the news all the day, all the time. So unless I turn the radio off, which I do. So I walk into the chiropractor and she's great, but she's like, so did you hear Texas is lifting its restrictions? And I said, yeah, what a bunch of assholes. And then she looked at me and I looked at her and we both just cracked up because she was coming from it like, I just want things to get back to normal and good, they're doing this. And I'm like, and we laughed, even though we were that could have been such a weird, awkward moment, but we both just laughed like, yep. She was all excited thinking I was going to be excited. And I'm like she was thinking what I was thinking was like, what a bunch of assholes. And I'm like, totally. How refreshing, to be able to just laugh. And we totally disagree. And that's okay. Why not? You're still great. You're going to give me a great adjustment. I'm going to get healing. You're going to go home. Everything's going to be fine.
So good. So good. And there we come back to the value of laughter, right? Laughter as a tool for unification and laughter as a tool for like, we're all the same because we're all laughing at the horror show that this tension of opposites reality fucking is every 10 seconds of existence. If you don't laugh,
Yeah, you gotta laugh. Like that's that of the world, but like it's like I love engaging and being in the world and making things happen. But I know on a bigger level, like it's all the world's a stage, it's all an illusion. But I'm here for a reason. So let's get some shit done and have some fun and create some culture and like play with people and like the living tarot thing or like whatever. Like let's do some cool stuff that doesn't exist. Like, why not?
Why not indeed?
And be in nature a lot and live in an amazing place and go enjoy nature and play and all that. And but I don't know. I'm all about the cultural thing and like how to like push things along and, my little part of that, knowing this is my little part, but it's fun. It's like collaborating for me. Like what could be more fun?
I love it, Tami. So I love you. That's why we all love you. We love the Tami Graham because you make everything you make this whole living conundrum less of a conundrum. You make it a fun time.
Good. Thank you. I mean, why not? Of course it's going to happen. You're going to have hard times, but I don't know. I just feel like there's such an opportunity to be here on this planet right now. Like, wow. That I keep thinking the words of engaged Buddhism keep coming up for me too. Just when I became aware of like what that meant, it reminded me of what you were talking about earlier about like, yeah, we could all, just being active in the world, taking your spiritual practice and being engaged in the world around it and it's not as opposed to, it's not an either or, of course, nothing is, even if we think it is, like how to go out and be engaged in the world and make a difference while having your spiritual practice and your sense of peace and alignment and, whatever it is. Like to me, that's the ultimate fascinating tension of the opposites. And it's, is it tension? There's probably a better way to describe it, right?
Holding. What if it's a holding? A holding of the opposite.
It's a transformation. It's a dance, dancing in the fire of that tension, or I don't know.
And my point of view is like, the more we dissolve the tension, the more we just live as the light and are the peace and carry the qualities of the divine. And then if we were to just dissolve all those tensions, more and more people dissolving and dissolving and dissolving, you just become a race of light beings. And what a gift that is, but that's just my particular calling and my particular, what I mean? That's just what I'm up to. Speaking of what I'm up to, if we want to get it, I could feel Cassidy being like, we're going to have to read the records. We have to get the records, which is true.
Katie can always just read my mind. And I just found that out last week, that Katie is always reading my mind. And I'm like, great.
Oh, you didn't know that before?
I mean, I knew that she could like sense. She was a very intuitive person who like could vibe on things. But then she literally told us, especially when she gets into the records, she's like, oh, I can hear everything you're thinking. And I'm like, God damn it.
Darn it.
Sorry.
No privacy.
It was pretty funny too, because in that particular moment, I was like, a lot of times I perceive what people are thinking, which is a hard thing to explain. I'm sort of like, oh, I feel what you're thinking. I just know, or whatever. But other times I'm hearing the literal words. And in that moment, for some reason, I was hearing Desmond have a full conversation with himself in response to me, and Cassidy have a full conversation about what was happening in the moment. And I was like, just silent, because I was listening to them both think.
I want to give you permission to share, if you can remember for me, like, can you literally remember like, oh, you said this bitch is talking too much or anything like that? Like, I don't think that, but I'm just saying.
No, but there was agitation for you and some impatience, but with Desmond, it was, remember I said this, Desmond, I could hear everything you're thinking. And I said it to him because he was a little more aggro in the moment. And it wasn't all about me being annoying, although I am. It was about a fair amount of things in his life. And I could feel the history behind it. And I could feel what it was really about. And I could feel the nicotine operating behind layers back. There's a lot going on.
All right.
And we love each other. We love each other. But see, that's the thing. Look, I think you're in real trouble if you develop your psychic abilities and you don't have a really strong, compassionate arm.
Yeah.
Like if I can't hold, look, we're all going to judge each other. We're working together. We're going to rub up against each other and we're going to piss each other off. And like, if we're going to fucking A, I mean, if I didn't annoy you, I'd be confused.
There's that tension of the opposites thing.
Yeah. She's going to judge you if you don't judge her.
So funny. No, but so just hearing it all and being able to, that's just a perfect example of where I could hear whatever you're thinking. It's okay, because I'm going to dissolve around it anyway and go, we're going to allow that. Because if you resist it and try to stop it, well, then you just hate me more and you judge more. So you have to allow people to be exactly where they are, and go through it and then offer whatever needs to be offered to soothe whatever needs to be soothed. At least that's how I hold it. So
yeah, I know we're going to get into reading the records, but it just, like there's some kind of like, just like you were talking about, Katie, like how you see the world through your slice of Pisces moon, and how there's a little bit different angle, like of how I see things, similar concept being a Cancer moon or whatever, like some kind of interactive, like almost like game or exercise or thing would be so fun to develop, that where people could like really understand, oh, so that's how you see that. Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
That makes sense because you're in whatever your moon is or whatever it is. It just broadens the perspective, because everybody's so busy. We're so busy. I think we're wired to just take things personally, like naturally. We can work through that and become aware when we're judging or whatever. But having that sense of like understanding, like how, like with the conversation we were just having. So that's how you see the world. That's cool. Like it just feels like there could be such a tool for people's deepening understanding of each other. And different doesn't have to be wrong. And I want to kill you because you're different than me, and you threaten my sense of my thin ego or whatever. But yeah, go ahead.
Well, that's why I love human design so much, and astrology and the Enneagram.
Yeah.
Because they create language for, here's how you are, here's how I am, and here's how our auric fields interact when they come near each other. Nobody's wrong, nobody's right. It's just what's occurring. It's like saying, here's what a cactus is made of, and here's what soil is made of. And when you put a cactus in this soil, it grows. And when you put a cactus in this soil, it dies. Is the soil wrong?
Right.
No, the soil is just made to do what the soil is made to do. And the other soil is made to do a different thing. Maybe it's made to make lilies or geraniums. Who knows what that soil is for? But what I like about these systems and these teachings is that they offer us that, exactly what you said, that understanding of you're like this and I'm like this. And how do we find space and hold space for everybody to be who they are, and it's okay.
Right.
I was just having this, I kind of feel like when you said that, Tami, like, what game could we invent? I'm like, that's the game of relationship, I think.
Yeah, sure. It is. But any kind of relationship. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just, and that's part of why I love doing, that, like when I was doing some mediation work, it's like, how it is, you have a rub with somebody, you have an argument, and then you like, it sucks. And then you have a heart to heart and you work it out and you have this deeper understanding and you feel closer than ever. That is the beauty of working with the tension of the opposites, right? Because there's an opportunity there that something wants to emerge, a new understanding or a new, whatever it is in ourselves with others. And to me, that's like the magic of like, cool, like, we've all just grown and evolved.
And
yeah,
100%. Like I had one of those today. I'm just going to share it briefly for people's benefit, and then we'll go in your records. But it was, so my new man friend and I just spent like 3 days together on a road trip, and it was really fun. And we had a great time, and it was a lot of together time, right? So I was back last night and I'm back tonight, and we were going to maybe meet these new friends of mine for dinner. But my body this morning was saying, like, I actually need to do this on my own. Like, I need a night to myself with new friends where it's just me and I'm not navigating your field. Now, so I said that to him. I was like, hey, babe, and we have this commitment with each other to be really good about each other needing whatever they need. If you need 3 days, you need 3 days, and it's not personal, but we'll work it out together, So I had to do one of those this morning. So I left him this voice memo, like, I think I need to see these guys alone, and there's no problem here, and I adore you, and I want to hug you right now, but I need this night, and I'm still kind of coming back to myself, and is that okay? How does that land for you? And he was like, thank you for telling me, because it does help me. Even though I like a space too, it's like, when you tell me, rejection comes up, so I'm glad you told me, because now I don't feel rejected. And then, by the end of the conversation, I was like, you should come tonight. Because I feel so close to him. Yeah. Because of the intimacy that gets created when you tell the truth. Now, I'm still not going to have him come because I know my body actually needs the time alone. But like, how fun and wonderful is that when you get good at articulating what's true for you in a way that doesn't make anyone else wrong, suddenly everybody just feels closer. All right. You want to go in the records? Let's do it, girl. Why not? Okay. Here we are. Hello. Let us do it. And Tami, what's your full legal name again?
So it's Tamra, Tamira, Tamra Therese, Tarese Graham.
Okay. Okay. So we're going to dive in. We'll close our eyes. And we'll just take a couple deep breaths into the low belly. I find it's helpful sometimes to focus on the exhale to release all the tension and holding we tend to do in the low belly area. And just giving ourselves a moment to let the breath deepen into a deeper part of the belly and the body. Simultaneously, we'll bring our mental attention into the center of our heads and just sit there in the center of the head, consciously bringing the mental attention away from the forehead, away from anywhere else in the head, and back to the center of it. Then we're going to feel into the bottoms of each foot, becoming aware of the full surface area of the bottom of each foot. And we're going to see at the bottom center of each foot a little foot chakra spinning, a little vortex of energy that's going to spin open and open and open, bigger and bigger and bigger, until the entire surface area of the bottom of each foot is a nice open plane of energy, like we've just opened a window, connecting the house of our body with the house of the earth, allowing and acknowledging that now the electromagnetic fields of the earth and our bodies can communicate more readily, more directly, more easily. And as we mentally sit at the center of our heads and breathe into the low belly, we're going to visualize a ball of bright white light in the center of the heart chakra, about the size of a softball. And we want to see that ball of bright white light expand bigger and bigger to fill the entire inner reality of our bodies. See that softball expand to the size of a basketball, and then 5 basketballs. And then it expands so big that every single cell of your body is lit up with this bright white light of consciousness or awareness or divine light. And then we'll bring our attention back to our feet, and we'll visualize, imagine, or allow a total of 1,000 energetic roots to extend from our energy body down through our feet into the earth, hundreds of miles down into the planet, deep into the soil, down into the portion of the earth that each of our individual souls connect with most intimately. 500 roots extend from your left foot, and 500 roots extend from your right foot, down and deeper into the planet. Left and right and forward and back like tree roots, irregular shaped, gnarled in some spots, smooth in others. Those tree roots descend and descend as the cells of our bodies remain lit up with the bright white light of the heart portal, and our minds stay at the center of the head, and the breath is connected to the low belly. Simultaneously, we're going to visualize now a root, a grounding cord extending from the base of our spine all the way to the center of the earth. We're going to allow that root chakra to open wide as this grounding cord extends, and we'll let the grounding cord be about 1.5 feet wide. We're going to see it now shooting straight to the center of the earth. And as it connects down with the center of the earth, we're going to allow and imagine a river of light coming from Sophia Gaia, the soul of this planet, flowing abundantly up through that grounding cord and into our root chakra. And then it's going to flow forward into your hip sockets and down your quads and your glutes, your hamstrings and your knees, your shins and your calves, your ankles and your feet, down into the roots that extend below each foot. The roots now being nourished and fed by the light of Sophia Gaia, or the earth. Yes, very beautiful. And that's our little tripod grounding structure that really anchors us to the here and now. Okay. And from here, we'll go right into the prayer. And so we do acknowledge the forces of light, asking for guidance, direction, and courage to know the truth as it is revealed for our highest good and the highest good of everyone connected to us. Amen. Holy Spirit of God, protect me, please, from all forms of self-centeredness and direct my attention to the work at hand. Help me to know Tamra Therese Graham in the light of the Akashic Records. Help me to see Tamara Therese Graham through the eyes of the Lords of the Records, and enable me to share the wisdom and compassion that the masters, teachers, and loved ones of Tamara Therese Graham have for Tamara Therese Graham. And I'll just go quiet for just a moment. And I'm just asking that you deepen us into the Akashic records of Tamara Therese Graham, heretofore referred to as Tami. And I'm asking the Lords, Masters, and Teachers of the Akashic records of Tami and the Divine Mother, Father, all that is, Great Source Light, to clear anything and everything that would stand in the way of Tami and or myself receiving the highest guidance and healing, direction, insight, wisdom, and clearing, integration and wholeness, soul retrievals, whatever is required today and in her highest good. We're asking for anything in the way of that to be cleared, uncreated, destroyed, unlocked, released, integrated, made whole, whatever else is required. I mean, and so it is. I mean, aho. And so just briefly, Tami, and then I'd love to know whatever questions you might have. I oftentimes get an initial kind of download or impression with people in their records, and immediately what I receive with you is a sense of we'll take this as a metaphor of a multi-dimensional butterfly that it's like the essence of you is this multi-dimensional butterfly, and it's beautiful and its wings are flapping. And it's like, if you think of a like a prototypical Alex Gray painting, how he shows you like the fractals that make up any, like if you think of a single line drawn on paper, it's made up of like fractals of light. Like this butterfly is that way. It's like every piece of the beauty of the wing, I see it as a multi-dimensional fractal to another dimension. And that is the essence of you, some of which has been activated by, some of the, I want to say psychedelics you've done, and some of which is, just the organic nature of what you are. But it's a very holistic, I want to say, it's like the experience for me of being merged with your essence in your records is like a circle around my body. It's like this. If you imagine, how butterfly wings, they open left and right, but then they can close in front of the butterfly's body. If you imagine that the butterfly wings could open all the way around the back and then all the way to the front, and as the wings open around to the back and they meet each other behind you, and then they open all the way to the front and they meet you in the front, the toroidal field created around your body by the movement of the wings is what it feels like to be with you. That's the best I can do, I think. Okay, and so here we sit, and I'm just so full of gratitude. There's also a deep, ancient kind of ancient wisdom here that's available. Like I want to say, like a native population kind of ancestry. And I think you've told me you have some. Do you have some Native American ancestry?
I sense that it's there on a spiritual level, but I don't have knowledge of it on a biological level, physically.
Okay.
My ancestors, but I definitely feel it in the connection to this area. My goodness. Yeah.
I mean, I feel it all through you right now. And I'm wondering, so is that an awareness of the earth? No. Is that an awareness of your alignment? I mean, it really, to me, feels like your alignment is aligned with some kind of, like, many of us have a lineage that is kind of like the core spiritual lineage that our soul has spent, you could say, the most time with or something, or comes from, or has the most practice in. Like I have this core of Sufi lineage, which is so funny to me. But anyway, and then I feel this kind of core native, I want to say native earth-based wisdom teachings through the middle of you, integrated with a kind of modern, holistic, plant medicine-y, trippy thing. They're like together. Okay, anyway, thank you for indulging that. That's just my little experience here at the beginning. So what would you like to look at today?
Well, it kind of ties in a bit. I mean, as you know, I've chatted about, my connection to this land that I've lived on for 17 years, and that I feel so fortunate to have the ability to have a long-term relationship with through, whatever means that is. I don't feel that I own the land. I feel like I'm lucky to be a partner, and I'm super curious about my history with this land and the valley, because I feel like there's history there beyond this lifetime, and then as a add on to that, like, I feel a sense of a responsibility or stewardship, like I'm drawn to stewarding. And I want to know more about that, whether it's this land or in this, Mancos Valley where Mesa Verde is and all of that. So I'm just curious about history there in my, yeah.
Okay. I love that. Okay, let's see what I can get here. So first things first, I want to ask the Lords, Masters, and Teachers of the Records of Tami. We're asking for any guidance, insight, wisdom, details about her history with this area. And so there initially is just like a big yes energy. And so again, I'm shown this native energy and just, yeah, wow. Okay, let me sit with that for a moment. So I'm going to let this trickle in. It sometimes starts like a trickle and then it becomes a river. So it's like, so there's a chief and a group, a tribe, and the cliff dwellings, and living here. And are you the chief? Yes. And are you a woman? No. Okay. I wish I could be all feminist about it, but that's not what I see. Okay. And was this last lifetime? No. 2 lifetimes ago. 3 lifetimes ago. 3 lifetimes ago is what we're looking at right now. So first things first, how many lifetimes has Tami had where she's had an intimate relationship with this land, or where she's been living on this land? Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, just 3. Huh. Okay. Any more than 3? No. Okay. Any relationship with this land before those 3? No. Okay. And so the most recent lifetime with this land was 3 lifetimes ago. Yes. Okay. And that's where she was a chief. Okay. And okay. And then there's something about war, but not. Mm-hmm. Do you know anything about war here? What would you say about that, Tami?
Well, early on, a few years into us owning this land, I originally bought it with 5 other women, and we all had this vision of living here and each having our home and having this communal thing. And then it completely blew up with this intense lawsuit with our neighbors that lasted for several years. And it felt very karmic, like there is some reconciliation of history, especially regarding some of the other ladies, perhaps, but obviously somehow I'm tied into it, but it feels like a lot of that's been resolved and pushed through. But I've always felt like there was a lot of baggage or history around what happened. And yet my desire and true intention to stay here and bring and work with this land and move through all that and bring it to another level that's servicing, higher good.
Okay.
For this valley.
So do you want to know more about the past lives or more about these women and the blow up, or do you want
lawsuit? Yeah.
About the lawsuit?
Yeah.
Okay, let's look at that. Give me a second. I had a window pop up that did a weird thing. All right, so first thing, okay, so there's so much. Okay, now there's like a whole ocean of info. So the women in this lawsuit and in the blow up, was that part? Yeah. And was it part of? No. Okay, so it was from the 3 lifetimes ago time. It was a karmic completion. And they're going, so you see, when you like to play in the world, the way you said before, you like to play in the world. You get actively, we're going to, in the world, work it out in the world. Sometimes, a karmic blow up has to happen like that because that's the way you play.
Yes. Understood.
Right? Yeah. And so anyway, yes, it was from, and so opposing tribes? No, from within the tribe. Oh, okay. So from within your tribe, some shit went down 3 lifetimes ago and then you lost track of one another for the 2 lifetimes after that. Understanding, they say that, and you know this, but how time is so not what we think of time as humans, what we think of time. In other words, like in a way, no time has passed and it's all folding in on itself. And it was 5 minutes between when the thing happened and then you guys resolved it in this lifetime. So now, but the question is, okay. And so you were meant to be the rightful steward of this land here where you are right now. And at the time, and there is an energetic connection between where you physically were, and I keep seeing you literally in the cliff dwellings over in Cortez, living there. I don't even know who that is or was. And then now you're here on this land where you are, which is in Mancus, right? And it's connected energetically. And are they, yeah, and the spirit of the land and the spirit of this mountain that you're on now, you kind of live in a little mountain, the spirit of that little hill.
Mm-hmm.
You are the correct steward of that hill because you would care about it above yourself, almost. Like you're not going to harm yourself, but you would put it first. Like in the way that if you have a relationship and you're like, I care about you so much that I'll go see your whatever, do whatever you need to do, right?
Yeah.
But the other people wouldn't have maybe cared as much.
Yes.
And so that's why you're there.
Right.
Because you care. Okay. I mean, that's all kind of obvious, I guess. Okay. What can you help me hone in on the question more specifically? What else would you like to know about all that?
Are there any things that are hindering or obstacles that could be cleared around presently on the land and relationships with those that live around us? I would like for this land to continue. I feel like it has even higher purpose. That's not the right word, but a higher, like through ceremonies or gatherings and I because I almost have PTSD from this history of all this. And there's a lot of history there, so I'm glad to hear it's cleared to a large degree. I also have a little PTSD from like you and I have talked about the straw bale and I want to continue bringing in light and love to this land. And I want to be aware of.
Okay. Yes. There's nothing in the way. There's nothing in the way. In fact, they're like, even the people that you can think of right now in the neighborhood who are like, they don't really get it. They're not in the way anymore. They're really not. Now, the only thing in the way is you think, okay, let's put it like this. You know this, but we want to validate. It's like, you need to be extra discerning about who comes onto that land.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody with any chaos or drama. It's like the saying they say where they say, don't date someone's potential, date who they are. And say to yourself, if this person never changed at all, ever, even a little tiny bit, would I still, get really entwined with them? Right? You need to ask that about everyone who you invite onto this land. If this person never grew up, never evolved, never changed an ounce, because the likelihood of people changing is low, would I want them on this land? Are they the most pure, aligned, surrendered, of service mentality person that could be here? And if you get even that little twinge in your stomach sometimes that you get where you're like, oh God, except for that thing, but I shouldn't judge them. I shouldn't think about that thing. You're not judging them. You're just aware of the chaos they're going to bring to your land. Anything. Wow. Okay. This is so clear now. I love how that trickles in and then becomes a river and then becomes an ocean. For those of you learning to read the records, sometimes that's how it goes. Okay. Anything you bring to this land that is not of the light, that is not honestly for real bowed and surrendered to spirit, it's going to blow up fast. Because that's how the light works. The light destroys everything in the way of the light. It's meant to do that. It's supposed to do that. Okay, so it's going to, and of course, destroy means obliterate everything in the way of having more consciousness, more awareness, more spiritual connection. But in the meantime, somebody who's not awake and aware, whose life blows up because they move into a straw bale, isn't going to understand that that's for their highest good. They're going to just hate you for it.
Yeah, it's already happened. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great. So, amen, hallelujah, namaste. Also, they're showing me that the land is purifying you. It's really working you, but you're interested in that and available for that. Hallelujah. And that's part of what makes you a helpful steward of it, is because you go, holy fuck, this energy, holy fuck, I bow to this energy. I allow it to heal me. I allow it to integrate me with source even more. And so it goes, thank you. If you bow to me, I bow to you, right? Mutual respect.
Yep.
So no, there's nothing in the way except you might be yourself. You might be inclined to codependently be nice about people coming in who aren't quite the right people. And the land says, please be particular, be very, very particular. Nobody who isn't very surrendered comes aboard the ship, right? I'm actually curious, if you don't mind, I kind of want to track a question that came up for me a moment ago, which is, I'm trying to understand, or maybe we don't get to, but let's see, the connection between where you were before 3 lifetimes ago and this little where you are now, like what?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? How there's space between them. Like you were at Mesa Verde. Okay. And so why, so Lords, Masters, and Teachers, the records of Tami, why is it that in that lifetime she was there and okay, that was easy. They're like, well, she did her work there. There was chaos. There was leaving, but Mesa Verde is doing well. Mesa Verde has its stewards. Is there a connection to that? And this is your next assignment, really. You're just here now doing this.
Ooh, I have a question.
Because that's all, yeah.
When I was maybe, I don't know, 8 or 9 or something, with my family, we visited Mesa Verde. We were living in Denver. We visited Mesa Verde, went up there to the Sun Temple. And I think I've shared this with Katie, but I'm super curious what the records have to say. But I had this experience where I jumped down into one of the little rooms at the Sun Temple. Me and maybe one of the other two boys were down in this little room with me, and one of us knocked loose like a hornet's nest or something, or wasp nest, and I got stung a bunch of times. And then someone jumped down and lifted me out. But I look back at that, it's like, shit, man, that was like being inoculated, or like, okay, you've been here before, you're coming back here, and this is us. I don't know. It was so powerful of an experience back then. And I'm sitting here looking at Mesa Verde, like out my window right now. Right. And it's like this connection. It was like such a, just that experience felt really profound looking back at it.
Okay. What is the question?
I guess the question is there anything more to learn from that experience about my connection to Mesa Verde?
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Let me see. So you feel like you were being inoculated?
Well, it's kind of a weird word for it. I feel like,
because I get a different thing than that.
It's not inoculation. That's a weird word. Go ahead. What do you get?
Well, I mean, okay, I'm going to say this and then let's see if it changes or if it roots in. Because sometimes things come through and then they lead to other things. But I get that it was a little bit of a there's like a respect that's being asked of you. Like you don't just hop down in. You do a thing and then you do another thing and you do a ritual. And the getting stung was like, you're doing this a little haphazardly, and we'd like you to be like, no, we burn the thing and we do the sage and we respect the stuff and we like that. It wasn't, from what I get, it's like, it wasn't a big deal in terms of like, it's almost like if somebody goes like this to you and just smacks you on the hand, they're like, no, don't just fucking get high and hop in here. Not that you were high, but like that energy.
Right.
So but the profundity of it, wow, I get, I can feel it in my low belly. Like, it's like it reconnected you to the spirit of that area.
Yeah.
Which then deepened your connection to your spiritual assignment this lifetime, which is to steward this land. I mean, that's part of your spiritual assignment, is stewarding this land. And I also am hearing that you agreed to do this then.
Mm-hmm.
In that lifetime, you said, I will protect, I will take care, I will steward, I'll be a part of the team, because there is a team of light beings serving the land, keeping these portals clean. When you get people who are really, really injured or like have a lot of work to do on themselves on a really beautiful portal, the portal is busy, the portal is healing them. And that takes a long time. But if you're with someone if you have someone stewarding the land who's cleaner and more aware, now you guys can work in tandem and get some real shit done for the collective and for the planet and for God, rather than you can't just put anybody on these assignments. You have to put people who are going to be awake and aware about it. Okay. All right. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally makes sense.
Okay. Tami, so anything else on that visit with the Hornets or anything? Or you feel complete?
That feels complete. Yeah.
Okay. Anything else about the land that you're on now and the stewardship or the past life? Or are you complete there?
Just my like conscious mind has this question. Like, so when you said 3 lifetimes ago, like my mind goes, oh, 75 years ago or something versus, but is it more like,
More like
a lot longer ago than that, or literally 3, you know what I mean? Like,
oh,
I guess it'd be long gaps when you're not here, I guess. So my linear mind is trying to sort it out, which probably doesn't.
yeah, it was not 75 years ago. It was
Right.
More than
That's
that.
that's what I was, because we don't just automatically recycle back, I guess. Right. There's gaps.
Well, and it's also time doesn't work the way we think it works.
Right. Okay.
So I'm getting more like, I mean, this sounds like a lot, but like 300, 350, 300, 280, something like that years ago. And if you felt like looking at the history, then you sure could. Oh, what else? Let's get a little more in here for you. They have more for you. So what else do you want to know?
Anything in terms of awareness of the journey between Armida and I, my partner, and in terms of knowledge about our journey? And I don't know, that's a huge question, but I feel like there's been a real deepening recently and, coming through some more challenging time. And I feel like maybe just I'd be curious about, history between us and past lives and how that's informing.
They don't want to go there. They're like, no. Past lives are irrelevant. Here's what's relevant in this situation this is so, okay, well, I'm just going to, a few things. One, the first image they're giving me is it's an image of her dissolving into you. She her energy comes into the center midline of you and dissolves into the container of you. So you are the container and she is the light. And so generally speaking, and forgive me for the gendered framing of this, but I don't have better language yet than what they give me, which is like, generally speaking, in a big picture way that is not simplistic or dualistic and reductionist, the masculine energy in a dynamic is the container for the feminine. The masculine is like this, the tree, the image is like a kiva, and then the feminine comes in and says all the prayers and does all the incantations inside the kiva. So you can't do it without the kiva, and the kiva has no purpose without the light. All right. So something is happening now where you two are really stepping into those roles together. There are many, many small ego deaths being asked for here. Specifically, for you, it's like, let her be exactly what she is. And for her, it's shine as bright as you are and let your light dissolve away the aspects of Tami that need dissolving and trust that they are dissolving. So how does all of this occur? Through the connection of your hearts and through you surrendering to your roles. It's like if you're in a play and you're the murderer and she's going to die, you can't resist that and be like, but I want to be nice to you. Your lines say, fuck you, you're dead. So you have to play the role. So similarly here, it's like for you, Tami, there are many ways in your life you get to be the center dog. I don't know why they say that, but the center of attention and the doer and the maker of things. That is good. In your dynamic with her, however, part of your role, a very large part, is to be the container for the light. Now, does that mean you have no light? Of course not. It just means if we're looking at the roles we're playing, you get to be more light by surrendering to being a container. Okay. And so part of what's going to make this time period easier and deeper and make everything work better is the more time the two of you can spend in spiritual connection with spirit together, the better. Nature, ceremony, meditation, prayer together. Because you're two parts of a thing and you need each other to create the thing. But see, this is where it's not about what vacations we take and how sexy our relationship looks and feels. It's about what is our job as a team spiritually. What is our job? And so the first step of your guys' job is, the next step of your guys' job is to more fully surrender to the soul level work you're doing now. First they say, create the portal that you two are together when you're the container and she's spinning light through the middle of you. Create that, let it be strong, practice creating it, hold it, live in it, and then the next steps will be revealed. And the portal you're creating together, it does have to do with serving the land you're on, but it has to do with serving the spiritual energy of the land, and allowing that spiritual energy to, the image I get is like spin up like this, allowing it to spin between the two of you. Like if you picture a portal, like a tunnel, a channel, like a tube, right? When you guys correctly and fully create the tube, you're the container, she's the light, the spiritual energy of the land you're on gets to shoot up into the sky and create a connection between here and there. And the connection is necessary and needed right now by humanity, by the collective, by the planet. Any questions?
No, that feels totally right on. And some of what I've been getting in looking into my own records as well when I ask a similar question.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's really tough. It's tough because the second half of life, as Father Richard Rohr talks about the second half of life being, he has a book called Falling Upwards. He talks about, it's not sexy because it's not about us anymore. Oh, we live in this thing and we got this stuff and we went this place. It's more about, we really we get to do things and you do things and they're great. But really, what are you doing? You're doing your soul's work. And it's not always sexy. It's just service. That was probably more for me than for you. Okay. I think we have to wrap up for time. Is that right? Yes, that's right. All right. Any last quickies, Tami, before we? No.
I don't think so. That was totally right on and great. And thank you. Felt spot on.
Pleasure. Okay, good. I hope it's specific enough. Okay. And not so I don't know. All right. So I want to say thank you to the Lords, Masters, and Teachers of the Records for their love and compassion. Thank you to the Lords of the Records for their point of view, and the Holy Spirit of Light for all knowledge and healing. I ask that you return all of Tami Graham's energy to herself now. Tamara Therese Graham's energy to herself now. And I ask that you return her to her complete human wholeness now. And the divine portal and the Akashic records for Tamara Therese Graham are now closed. Amen. Divine portal and the Akashic records for Tamara Therese Graham are now closed. Amen. 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 Oh, my kitty showed up on the lap for the last minute there. We get some Leo love. Oh my gosh. Well, Tami, thank you so much for being here with us today. And that reading, I got to be in a really cool space for that. So I'm thankful to you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you both. That was really powerful and yeah, feels spot on. So great. Really appreciate the opportunity and the time and what you guys are doing here with the podcast.
Thanks, love. Appreciate you. All righty. Well, have a great day.
I will.
Feel free to sign off, hop off.
Great to meet you and chat with you.
Yeah, you too, Cassidy. All right, you guys.
Much love. Care. I'll see you soon.
That was cool.
That was great.
I tell you, I knew almost right away. I was like, oh, she knows my mom. I don't know what. Even before I heard the JFK thing, it was just one of those vibes. I was like, this lady knows my mom.
That is so cool. That when you guys had that, when you said that, I was like, oh my God. And tell me again, just in gist, so we get you guys off here. But your mom wrote a bunch of books.
So my mom, in her individual history, did a lot of work in the field of psychosynthesis, which is sort of her branch of transpersonal psychology, and wrote books on it, more of a text, and then also some more consumer-oriented stuff. But then past that, in the last long time, she's been working with Joanna Macy in the work that reconnects and co-authoring books with Joanna Macy, sort of being her co-writer on the last 2 editions of a book that she keeps rewriting throughout the years and releasing new editions of. So there's that connection is probably the most obvious connection because Joanna Macy has a certain amount of celebrity or whatever in the field. So that's why I just assumed when I heard anything at all, it's like, this woman knows at least Joanna and probably my mom. So that was fun.
That's really cool. I love so much the small world synchronicity of that. I also know that like your family, your parents lived in the Southwest.
Right.
for a
I didn't
while.
even bring up the fact that they lived right up the road from where you are or where Tami is, and like almost like similar time. Like they might have crossed paths out in the Southwest at some point because she was there. Yeah.
Right.
In that corner when my parents were living there. So that's just, I love the synchronicities of those things.
Me too. God.
Yeah. There's just certain vibes, you're like, yeah, I know, that I know.
That's so cool.
Also, I just wanted to share, I've been trying to meditate again and not doing, I've been consistent about doing it, but I just sit there for, and not being able to like surrender to the to the river very well. And that's fine, trying to not be in judgment. But today I came back from my little pee break to sit and kind of joined late, like the sit.
Oh, yeah.
But for the first time in maybe ever, I was able to, like, I found myself like shooting through like a wormhole landscape for a while. Like I was like, whoa, there I go. Whoo, that was interesting. But then I started to pay too much attention to it and it became a thought instead of a feeling. And then I landed back in the busy brain. But still, I just enjoyed that. It's a thing that I wanted to put a pin in and just notice.
I am so happy to hear that. Wow.
Yeah, it was.
I'm just like
a unique
honored.
experience. Like I feel like for one of the first times I found my version of the river or something. You know what I mean? Like how I was experiencing the space beyond, which I've not done. It's mostly all up in the busy brain.
Dude, rock on.
So that was cool.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's the coolest thing I've heard ever.
And then also noticing that it's really close to my experience of dozing off, but not. Like I was like, wait, am I dozing off? Is this dream state? Because I tend to doze off too. Like,
yeah.
But I was like, I don't think it is, but I recognize that the feeling is, the sort of visceral feeling is similar.
Yeah, there's a real fine line. We talked about that at length in my first the first healing school. They talked about the dozing off thing is bottom line just is to just let it happen, because it's either going to take you into a conscious wormhole portal of light or it's going to take you into an unconscious one. But either way, you're there.
That's great to hear, because sometimes I feel shitty about falling asleep, and whatever, it is what it is. But anyway, I just wanted to call it out before I forgot it.
No, I'm so glad you called that out. Yeah, let's clap. That's a big deal. Desmond and I are clapping.
Yeah.
That's very big, Cass. And I'm honored to be a part of it. I'm glad we were here to witness it.
It was the shortest meditation I might have ever had. It's like 5 minutes of meditation today. Hey, but that's something.
It's not nothing.
But it was a more powerful experience than a half-hour meditations I've had in the past, by far.
Well, that's huge. I've had this thought for you. I know we have to go, but I've had this thought for you a couple times where I'm like, have you ever microdosed?
No, but I'm interested in the idea, to be honest.
We should talk more about it, because it's been up a lot lately in my world, and people I know doing it in healthy ways, and like the ways that it can, even mushrooms, psilocybin, whatever, can really open something that makes that connection between the head and the heart easier to attain on a regular basis. And it's not like, do microdose all the time, but it's like sometimes if you do it 1 or 2 times, it just poofs you into, it opens a channel that allows that to be an easier thing. Could be a thing.
Yeah.
Maybe not.
I love it.
I love you.
Thanks, y'all.
I love you guys.
I love you.
Do your work or don't.
Do your work.
Do your work or don't. Die shallow and unfulfilled. It's fine.
That's a less appealing choice, but it's also an option.
Hey, people have choice.
It's free will. Do your work if you want.
Bye.
Bye.
What are you asking for? All of the answers? Say what? All of the answers? Yeah, all the answers.
Hey guys, thanks for listening. We'd love to hear from you. Please email us with your questions so that we have questions to answer in the Akashic Records. Our email address is allanswerspod@gmail.com. That's allanswerspod@gmail.com. And if you'd like to find us on Facebook or Twitter, it's @allanswerspod, @allanswerspod. Thank you. Ooh, I didn't hear whatever he just said. Did you say stuff? No, it doesn't matter. It's not for you, Katie. You're not relevant here. I'm just talking into my microphone. Desmond talked into his microphone just now, and then I said, I didn't hear it. And he went, no.
Not for me. And
Anyway.
we're going to keep all this. This is good content. Desmond was doing tech check in the background.
Super good content. Anyway.
That was a Sounds Awesome production.